There's a lot of fitness advice out there. Some of it's good and some of it's junk. In today's episode, we're going to look at 8 common pieces of advice and tell you whether you should take them or leave them. So stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks so much for being here. As you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, we're in a different setting now than what you've been looking at, but this is what you're going to be getting for the foreseeable future. We are in week number 1 of full-time work, life, everything in our Airstream. So here we are at our first destination. Yep. We're only 3 days in?
Well, 2 days in.
2 days in.
This is day 2.
It's going awesome so far.
I'm already doing laundry right now.
We're staying at a place down in South Texas on the beach that we've stayed at before that we already knew that we liked. We didn't want to go off on this adventure and just put a whole bunch of variables in there that would make life difficult for us. Someplace familiar. We know they have a gym.
This is the top of the line, so this is the mecca of the places to stay, and it's only going to go downhill from here. We already know that, but that's okay. We've got to start off big. Yeah,
so if you want to come down here, there's a lot of snowbirds here from Minnesota, Canada.
There's not many Texans.
Highly recommend this place. It's called Gulf Waters
RV Resort. I mean, for instance, we've worked today. We went to the gym and worked out. We went for a dip in a 90-degree pool. Now we're recording the podcast, doing some laundry. We went for a 2-mile walk on the beach. I mean, so far it's going really well. Like
you said, though, we know that we're being spoiled. And this, for what this place charges per day, it's not realistic that we're going to stay in a place like this every single night. But we're going to balance it out. You know, a week at a place like this, and then a week at a state park where it's $25 a day. And it all works out in the end.
If anybody's watching, we have to bring durable cups with us. I'm drinking iced tea right now, but these are these Buc-ee's, they look like wine glasses. But
why do you say that?
Just to clarify.
Cups? Well, you're trying to tell people it's not wine in the cup?
Yeah, I'm trying to say it's not wine. But I'm just saying that, you have to, really think about the type of, you can't bring anything like glass that's going to break.
Well, we just talked last week about your Ace Hardware cup that holds an entire bottle of wine in it. And so everybody knows we already love durable drinkware.
Well, I'm just saying, this is iced tea.
Allegedly.
It's 3 o'clock.
It's allegedly. Okay, well, let's get into these pieces of fitness advice and tell everybody whether they should take them or leave them.
Take it or leave it fitness advice. Number 1, if you want to lose weight, avoid spiking your blood sugar because you'll release insulin, which makes you store fat. Take it or leave it.
I mean, you can leave this fitness advice. It stinks. And let me kind of explain why. Really, everything that you said in that sentence is true. When you eat a meal, especially a meal high in carbohydrates, you do release insulin, and you'll have a blood sugar spike, which is what causes the insulin to be released. And one of the things that insulin does is it directs all the nutrients that you eat where to go. And one of those places is into your fat cells. So yes, having an insulin response to a meal tells nutrients to go into your fat cells. But insulin also tells amino acids to go into your muscle. It tells glucose to go to your brain. It tells glycogen to be stored in your liver and all these other good things. It's basically just a messenger hormone that partitions the nutrients from your food once they're broken down into the places that they need to go. So if people mistakenly think, well, obviously, I don't want insulin telling nutrients to go into my fat cells. I'm trying to get rid of my body fat. So I can just keep that insulin suppressed. I'll just keep burning body fat for energy, and I'll end up losing weight. It's super short-sighted, as some of the other things we're going to talk about in this list are, because it still all comes down to whether your insulin went up or your blood sugar was down. It comes down to how much energy did you put into your body over the course of the day, the week, and the month, in calories, not just in carbohydrates, and watching this roller coaster of blood sugar go up and down. If you're in an energy surplus, meaning too many calories are going in, yes, insulin is going to tell those calories to be stored in body fat, and they're not going to go anywhere because you're just eating too many calories. Now, what I will say, though, if you start wearing like a continuous glucose monitor and you start seeing which foods cause your blood sugar to go up, and you start avoiding those kinds of foods, there's a good chance you might lose weight just because you start to see a lot of the highly processed, easy to overeat, high calorie junk foods cause your blood sugar to go up. So you might start eating less of that stuff.
Bowl of cereal.
Yeah, or several bowls of cereal, or a donut, or a piece of pizza, or any of those things. So it could have a positive effect on your overall diet, but you'll end up throwing out a lot of really healthy, nutritious foods that do make your blood sugar go up unnecessarily. Fruit, watermelon, oatmeal, grains, all these high fiber, high nutrient foods that should be a part of your diet. Again, it doesn't matter if your blood sugar goes up after you eat. That's a completely normal response. The problem is if you have insulin resistance to where your blood sugar doesn't come back down naturally and it stays high over time. That's where you start developing chronic disease. And that's largely a product of just overfeeding your body. Energy toxicity is what you could think of it as. So this one, we're going to leave it alone. We're going to stop worrying about whether we're spiking our blood sugar unless we're diabetic.
And all right. Number 2, take it or leave it. Don't eat past 7 p.m. or you'll gain weight since you aren't burning the calories overnight.
I mean, I definitely believed this at some time. I'm going to leave this advice with whoever gave it to me. Give it back to them. I believed this at one point in time for sure. I mean, it makes sense. Like, you're going to go eat a big meal and then you're going to go lay down. Like, you're not going to be burning any of those calories. They're just going to be stored as fat.
Yeah.
But if you think about what burns calories over the course of the day, the biggest chunk of it is just your basal metabolic rate, the calories that are burned keeping you alive. What other time of the day are you just sitting there being alive longer than when you're sleeping? That's like the majority of it's not the majority of the day, but it's a huge chunk of time.
Like the whole day you're just sitting there being alive.
But you're not doing anything, but you're still burning calories while you're asleep. So focusing on when you eat the calories is a really short-sighted approach to nutrition in general and what it takes to lose weight. Now, I will say, kind of like the continuous glucose monitor or worrying about your blood sugar thing, it can be helpful to give yourself a nighttime cutoff for when you're going to stop eating. But that's not because the calories eaten at a certain time are going to be preferentially stored as fat. It's because the choices that we tend to make at night typically lead us to eating more calories than we need.
The post-dinner snack, dessert type things.
The habit really of at 9 o'clock I grab a bowl of ice cream and I go back for seconds on it, or what I make cinnamon toast every night, or I have a bowl of cereal after. So that's the thing. If you can eliminate that by cutting back on nighttime eating, that can help you, only because the energy balance equation is over the long term, not just because of when you ate the calories at night. Now, one thing I'll say about this too is eating late at night might make you weigh more the next day, but that's not necessarily because you gained body fat. That food's just in your stomach still because it hasn't been processed. You haven't turned some of those nutrients into carbon dioxide, all that kind of stuff. Or it could be just that you're retaining more water because of what time you ate. Look at the big picture. Think weeks and months as far as this stuff, not hour by hour or day by day. Leave that advice.
All right. Number 3, using the leg press machine is safer for your back than doing back squats with a barbell. Take it or leave it.
All right. This one is I'm going to walk the line on this one and say in some cases you should take that advice, and in a lot of cases you should leave it too. Since we're living this lifestyle now, we're going to be in a lot more Globo gyms, won't have access to as many barbells for back squats and that kind of stuff. So we're going to reassimilate ourselves to using a leg press machine. So I'm looking forward to that. But I would say
safety for your back.
Yeah. And the reason I'm kind of on the fence with this one is I think that the leg press machine requires less skill for an uncoached person. So for that person who doesn't have a coach watching their form on a back squat, the leg press machine probably is safer for your low back because you're less likely to do something that you shouldn't do, or load the bar too heavy before you're ready for it, or whatever. It's just a little bit more of a controlled movement pattern than having all the variables of a free-floating barbell in space, pulling it off the rack, walking it back, how far down are you supposed to go, all those variables if you don't have a coach. But the reason I'm not just going to say as like a blanket thing that the leg press machine is safer than a back squat is because you can still hurt your back in a leg press machine. If you're basically doing a squatting motion just with your back being supported, whether you're in one of those ones where you're pushing your weight up against the machine or you're pushing your feet up in the air, you're still flexing at the hip. So your pelvis is still rotating. You're still putting a lot of flexion into that L5, S1 joint where most low back injuries happen. And you're doing it under a load because it's still weight on the leg press machine.
And you often think you can go heavier because you're in a seated, quote, safe position.
Exactly.
So you might overload this machine.
And it's been a long time since I've used one of these, but I would say you probably don't learn to brace your core as well in a leg press machine as you do doing a back squat. So, one of the best defenses against a low back injury is learning how to brace your core effectively. So as somebody gets progressively stronger in a leg press without learning how to brace their core, I don't know, maybe over time it's more dangerous. There's also the thing where, especially a beginner is more likely to overextend their knees at the top of a leg press
block them out.
rep. That's not your low back, but just in general.
There's still risk of injury even though it's a machine. I actually have experience with this because when I did hurt my back, I was working out at Rice University. They had an excellent gym. They had, racks with free barbells, which we used mostly, but then they had all the machines. And, when I felt like I could load some weight, going to the leg press machine was one of the first things I tried, and it hurt my back.
Yeah.
So I would try this, hurt my back, try this, hurt my back, and then what did I do? I started back with an empty barbell, no weight on it. Okay, that felt great. Okay, let's add 5 pounds to each side next week. Okay, that felt great, and that's really what ended up working for me, not trying to use the leg press machine.
I like that advice.
All right, number 4. Fresh foods are healthier than frozen or canned. Take it or leave it.
You got to leave this advice as if you're this focused on the minutia of your nutrition, then you're lost in the forest. You're missing the whole point of this thing. But besides the fact that you're obsessing about something that doesn't matter, the fresh versus frozen and canned debate makes no difference. Like when you have frozen food, it's picked at the peak of ripeness, as you would assume fresh food is. And then it's flash frozen, which locks in the nutrient level at that time. So that's a good thing. Like when you go to cook the food, it still has the same vitamin and mineral content as when it was picked.
Versus like strawberries that have been like sitting in a container, and then you take them home. They've been sitting for much longer than like frozen strawberries, where they're picked immediately, processed to freeze. And
that's exactly when the nutrient profile of fruit or vegetable starts to change, is as it starts to age. Like you just look at a vegetable that's been sitting around for 2 weeks, and you can tell it's not the same thing as when it started. So actually locking in the high vitamin and mineral content with frozen food. Now, one thing that can be tricky with canned food is you see a lot more added sugar, added sodium. A lot of added sodium and different things. So if you're somebody who's trying to keep an eye on their sodium,
syrups.
You never know, man. Like I grew up on those LeSure baby peas because we were hashtag fancy apparently. And what was it, like a few months ago, we're like, let's get some of those things.
Well, we had them, I think at my mom's, we had them in some occasion. I was like, oh my gosh, these peas are amazing. And we looked at the can, I was like,
there's like 20 grams of added sugar in them.
Yeah, and that's why they're called sweet peas. I was thinking more like, they're like, sugar snap peas. The natural pea does not have sugar in them. But I was thinking it was kind of the same situation for sweet peas. No, sweet peas, they've added sugar.
Yeah, it's great. Be careful. Just read the nutrition, because they're required to list added sugar on the nutrition label. So if it says anything other than 0, you've got something that's been manipulated with. The real problem I have with this is the problem isn't that we're eating too many frozen and canned vegetables as a society, or that we're having too much red dye number 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever it is that we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. And if you think that the only option for you because of your budget or whatever practicality is to get fresh or canned, and you don't, frozen or canned because you don't think it's as healthy as fresh, we're missing out. Get what you can, eat as many fruits and vegetables as you want. Like Nate Bargatze says, show me your fat fruit friends. They're just not out there. You're not going to overdo it.
Yeah, we're likely going to have to rely on more frozen vegetables in this situation because of the way the refrigerator works. It freezes anything with water pretty darn quickly. So we've tried like cucumbers, and you put a cucumber in there and then it becomes frozen immediately. So we're experimenting with it's not the same as being at home. We're experimenting with what we can carry, but we also are going to probably start to rely on more frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
So that, because we'll know that those are always going to be okay.
I love when we have them, like throw some garlic powder on there, some kosher salt.
Yeah.
They're delicious.
They are.
I know we have a fair amount of RVers that listen to this podcast. So we do have a fan, like an aftermarket fan sitting in our refrigerator to circulate the air to try to keep things from freezing. But if you've got a hack out there for keeping your vegetables from freezing, or like the yogurt from freezing, send us a message.
The fan has worked for our yogurt and cottage cheese and stuff. It used to be like anything we put in that refrigerator would like freeze. So we got this little fan that you put inside your refrigerator, and it circulates air, so that works. But it seems to be like the vegetables are pretty sensitive. So we went to the store and we got cucumbers, and we're like, hey, cucumbers are just out.
Yeah.
Like with the potatoes, they're not. Why are we refrigerating our cucumbers? So I think we were just refrigerating some of the wrong foods.
Yeah, or too soon. Like, refrigerated after it's cut up.
Yeah, so we've fixed that. But
or just buy the frozen ones.
Yeah. I've never had a frozen cucumber.
This is a new popsicle trend out there. Low calorie popsicle.
All right. If you want to tone muscle without getting bulky, use light weights and do high reps. Take it or leave it.
Let's leave this advice and let it burn.
You haven't taken any of this advice so far.
I was half and half on the leg press thing.
Well, I left that one, so.
Let's let this advice just go die. So the thinking is that using a heavy weight, which is another topic we can talk about. What is a heavy weight? Using a heavy weight makes your muscle grow big, grow bulky, grow bulbous, whatever. And then using a light weight and doing so many reps that you like feel that burn in your muscle. Well, that's what you want if you want your muscle to look toned and lean and maybe feminine or whatever. That's the misconception. The thing is, if you're just starting out, anything is going to make your muscle grow. At the beginning, I don't care if it's a soup can and you weren't using soup cans, now you're going to get a little bit of muscle growth, but that's quickly going to stop happening. And what you're going to do with these light weights and high reps is you're going to build the endurance of the muscle, meaning like you get more efficient at doing all those reps. It becomes easier for you. Your muscle can go longer before it reaches failure. That's great if that's your goal, is to train your muscles for endurance, like you're fixing to go do like Forrest Gump, like ride across America or whatever. Did he ride or run? I think he ran.
He ran.
But that's not what most people want. And this is the exact reason that we came out with our Why You Don't Look Like You Lift podcast and the free resource that we have, is because this misconception is stopping people from getting the result that they want in the gym. So they're frustrated. They think something's broken with them. They give up. They don't stay consistent because they're not seeing the physical result they want because of this myth.
I would say, like, I think a lot of it is like, so we're at home. We're like a person that, hasn't found our workout routine yet. And we see people on TV or whatever in gyms, and we see people who work out either professionally or have worked out for decades in their life, or work out, 6 to 7 days a week. And we see what they look like and we're like, that looks like too much for me, maybe,
Yeah.
And I think that we're like, we're putting ourselves, we're jumping way ahead than like what, like if we just like start training 3 times a week with weights that work for us, heavy weights for us, which could be 15 pounds. It doesn't, you start where you are, then we're not going to like jump to where this person has been working at it for 15 years. We're not going to get bulky. We're not going to, some people do put on muscle a lot easier than others. And I've worked with women in particular that do. And it's true that some people just can put on muscle a lot quicker. But again, it's like, what are we eating? How often are we training, and how long have we been training? Not
whether you used a 25-pound dumbbell or an 8-pound dumbbell. All weightlifting has to be heavy if we're going to make the muscle grow to a point where we can see it. And like Blakely just said, that heavy is relative to where your level is right now. Heavy is relative to the exercise that you're doing. Like you said, how many days per week you're training, but to to build the long, lean, toned muscle that most people want, we need to make the muscle grow by lifting heavy, and we need to get our body fat levels down to a low enough percentage to where you can see the definition of the muscle that you built. You'll never see the definition of a muscle that you forgot to build because all you did was build the endurance of a muscle. We explain all this in our 10-part email series about why you are working out but you don't look like it. Just go to digitalbarbell.com/look-like-you-lift. Sign up. We'll email you every day for 10 days telling you why all the stuff that you have tried before hasn't worked and what to do instead.
I think this reminds me of, it was like 2 weeks ago when I was saying that, like, I heard on the Today Show that, like, protein is trending, and this kind of makes me think of that because unfortunately right now I think like the skinny arm look is trending, which is ridiculous. It's
like a wrist all the way down.
It's ridiculous, and like I think, like, you know, we just have to block out the trending things and do what is right for you. I don't know why I'm getting off on this tangent, but it does drive me crazy that different things like start like how is protein trending? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And it's okay if everybody has their own goals, but we could bring in the argument of health too. Like having an arm the thickness of a wrist all the way up to your shoulder is not healthy.
Yeah.
And it's not setting you up for long-term independence, functionality. It's putting your metabolism in a terrible place. So side tangent there. Leave this advice.
Okay. Number 6. To lose weight, do your workouts in the fat burning zone, heart rate.
The fat burning zone.
Like
we're
orange, like the orange zone. Is that what you're talking about?
Orange theory.
Is that, the orange zone?
I think most of the charts that show you like carb versus fat burning zones use orange for the fat burning.
So to lose weight, do your workouts in the fat burning heart rate zone.
Yeah, and like we're saying, there's entire workout methodologies devoted to this. Leave this garbage alone. Buttons wants to say hi down there. Okay. There's so much misconception around what this means because the word fat can mean 2 different things. Fat can mean what you can grab on your stomach or on your arm, or fat can mean the nutrients that are flowing through your body that you ate. Does that make sense? Remember, stored body fat on your stomach or your arms or your legs is a result of having excess energy in your body. The nutrients that you eat are available for use depending on what kind of training you're doing. So some kind of exercise prefers to burn fat for energy. Some type of exercise prefers to burn glucose or carbs for energy. So depending on what you're doing, your body will preferentially push your energy source to whichever is, the best for that kind of exercise. In this fat burning zone, which is about 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, you're going to be primarily burning fat for energy instead of carbs. But like we've already talked about with several things so far in this episode, that doesn't really matter if your goal is weight loss, because it's not about what nutrient is your exercise using. It's about how much energy are you putting in your body and how much energy are you using over the course of days, weeks, and months. That's going to be the thing that turns a fat burning workout into you actually wearing smaller pants or looking better in the mirror. Not whether you had your heart rate at a certain zone while you were working out. Now, there's heart benefits to doing fat burning zone workouts. That we'll leave that for another day. But another thing about this is yes, let's say you did do an Orange Theory class and you were in the fat burning zone for the whole hour and your body burned fat for energy that entire time. Great. Forgetting the fact that how many calories you eat is going to depend whether you gain or lose weight. Your body, when you finish that workout, will preferentially switch its fuel source to carbs to make up for the deficit of fat that's no longer flowing through your bloodstream because you burned off all the available fat for energy. Now you're going to switch over and you're going to burn more carbs the rest of the day. Remember, your body always wants to stay in homeostasis. You can't trick it into doing things like this. The only way a fat burning workout is going to do what you think it's going to do is if you grab hold of your nutrition, you figure out how much you need to eat, and you do that over the long term. That is a fat burning workout. Leave that advice.
Okay. All right. Next one. If you have an injury, the best thing to do is rest. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to straddle the fence on this one, kind of like I did the leg press. If you have an injury, and if rest means I'm going to adjust my training to do something different than what I normally do, I'm on board. rest. You should rest when you have an injury.
You need to rest that particular body part.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if rest means you're going to lay on the couch and not train at all, then no, rest isn't going to help you fix your injury. It's probably going to lead to you falling off track with your workouts, taking longer to heal. Probably going to make your nutrition start to snowball into a downward trend. Also, we got to keep doing what we can with what we have.
Yeah.
And when it comes to an injured body part, what that really means, and I'm not pretending to be a physical therapist here, but it means adjusting the load on the injured body part, adjusting the range of motion, adjusting the exercise selection, decreasing the frequency in which you use that body part in training, looking at the rest of your lifestyle and see where you might be aggravating the injury in your day-to-day life. This could be particularly useful if you have a shoulder or neck or upper back injury and you work at a desk or you hold your phone in front of you.
Posture-related situations.
All that kind of stuff. But the advice to just take it easy doesn't promote healing because of the stress recovery adaptation cycle that both builds muscle and strength, but also heals injuries. You can't just like rest an injury to heal it. We have to cause a little bit of stress so your body sends nutrients, sends blood flow to the damaged area, causes an adaptation to help it improve. We recover, we stress it again, we recover, it adapts. We use this cycle to repair injury, just like we do to build strength.
Benefit of having a coach on your side, I just gotta say. We've helped so many clients and with different injuries with something that they like, they're in a cast and they cannot use that body part, to just like, I have an injury and I need to start to use this again, and how am I going to work this in?
Yep. I got a client who just had carpal tunnel syndrome surgery. That was a great success, but there's still things that we're having to modify around, but he's still training. It's his wrist. It's not his legs. It's not his other arm. It's not his chest. It's not his abs. It's not his back. There's still so much you can do.
All right, this is the last one.
All right, here we go.
I mean, are we going to take one? Let's see. If you're tracking your calories and you stop losing weight, you should lower your calories. Take it or leave it.
Take it.
Take it or leave
but probably leave it.
Usually leave it.
I mean, okay, so if you, how was the question phrased?
If you're tracking your calories and you stop losing weight, you're tracking, and you stop losing weight, you should lower your calories.
All right, so what this would suggest, I can't give a one-word answer. You know, I blab too much. What this would suggest is that you were losing weight and now you're experiencing metabolic adaptation. Your decreased body weight from dieting has reached a point where your calorie intake is now sufficient to maintain yourself at that weight. And this is the new you. If you want to continue to lose, we need to bring calories down to continue to lose. That can happen. It does happen, but it's rare. After coaching a lot of people, I can tell you, it's only happened like 3 times in the last 6 years. Now, it's not to say there aren't times when you do have to decrease calories, but before we get to that point, what's more common is that some of the behaviors that got us into a calorie deficit have started to erode a little bit. Maybe we have intentionally or unintentionally let old habits creep back in, which usually correspond to having some extra calories creep back in, or you're estimating food more than you used to. Maybe you were really precise when you first started tracking macros. Everything went on the food scale, and now it's more like you're heaping tablespoons of stuff, and maybe the kids' random leftovers are finding their way in. No judgment for that happening. It's completely normal. But a decrease in calories in MyFitnessPal won't fix any of those issues. It's also possible that something...
Which is good news.
It's great news.
So you don't have to... Yeah, you're not trying to, I have to like drop my calories again. You just maybe reevaluate, kind of do a week of like, okay, I'm going to be strict with my logging again. I'm going to really measure and weigh everything, and let's see where I actually am. It's a better check-in than like, let me just drop my calories.
I love that you said that's good news, because especially if you're a smaller female, you might be dealing with a relatively small number of calories anyway. And once you start to get down some of those numbers that you see posted on social media or talked about in a negative connotation, like 1,200 calories or 1,100 calories, you start thinking like, I'm gonna have to lower my calories to 1,200 to keep losing weight. That introduces a whole nother mental side of this. The other thing that could have happened, if let's say you really are on point with all those things that I said have a tendency to creep in, what changed in your life? Are you more sedentary now? Did you change jobs? What's your step count doing? Like,
is it winter and it was summer and we're like hunkering down more? We can't get outside to walk more.
So if we're always trying to keep calories high as we can while losing weight, we can play with the other side of the energy balance equation. We can try to get an extra 2,000 steps in per day. How often are we resistance training? Are we even resistance training? If we're not, we should start doing that, because not only does it burn calories and have the afterburn effect that people talk about, where you burn calories after you work out, but you're adding that new lean muscle tissue to your body, which ramps up your metabolism over time and keeps you eating more food. So those are things I would look at. Let's say all of that is kosher and we do have to lower calories now. I would recommend only lowering calories by about 25 grams of carbs. Give it 1 to 2 weeks to see how things settle out and go from there.
Which is very doable and not a lot. It won't have a huge impact.
It's 100 calories only. And sometimes
my little hack that I've always used is just like keep all the things the same that I'm eating, you know, like just take a little bit less in those portions instead of like I got to eliminate 100 calorie snack or something like that. No, take like a little bit less rice, take a little bit less oatmeal, like something like that is a great way to, like, you won't even notice it happened.
I love that you said that, because like one of our philosophies of nutrition is to never push somebody into food tracking if they don't want to or if we feel like they don't need to. And one of the ways that if we hit one of these quote plateaus and we're not tracking to lower calories without jumping into calorie counting is to do exactly that. Let's short your starchy carb portion by 2 bites at every meal. You do that for 3 meals or even 2 meals per day. You've zapped 100 calories out of your diet without having to go keto.
Leave 2 bites
or go carnivore.
on your plate. Leave 2 bites of a potato like at the very end. Like that's a great great way to go about it without having to track. And it's like you won't miss it, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I think this episode summarizes why fitness is so simple but hard, because there's all this misconception out there that sounds good on the surface, and there's always this nuance to it that makes sense when you have somebody explain it to you, but getting caught up in the weeds of this stuff can be overwhelming, can zap your motivation, make you frustrated.
If you feel confused, you just sometimes like you're confused on what to do for training, because all my friends are doing different things. I'm confused on what to do for my nutrition because all my friends are doing different things. And you don't know where to start.
You start with digital barbell.
It's simple, but it's confusing because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yep.
Oh wait, since we're in a new location, I have a new series. This is what we're going to do at the end of every podcast.
Ooh.
The reveal.
A new tradition? Oh, yeah.
Where we are.
Okay.
This is going to be funny,
Let's get the Velcro undone.
Are you ready?
1, 2, 3.
Ah.
There we go.
So we closed our windows because all you really see is this is our neighbor's Jeep. There's some palm trees out there.
Yeah.
There's a guy on a bike.
And
the sun came out. It's been pretty rainy and windy and chilly, but
Yep. So
the funny thing is, this guy's Jeep has like a display right now. It's off, but I can see he actually has the time. It's just too bright out there. 2:18. No, that's not the time anymore. It says the date 2:18 3:53. Yep.
And the other day during the NASCAR 500, he had a banner going across that display on the front of the Jeep that said NASCAR 500.
I don't know how he's doing that.
The Daytona 500,
Yeah,
NASCAR Daytona 500. I'm like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, that's funny.
All right, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have questions about this stuff, send us a message on Instagram. Submit an application to work with us. Check out the description of this episode to find out how we can work together. Enjoy the rest of your day.